On behalf of the Hellenic National Support Organization of eTwinning, I would like to welcome you to the first day of the eTwinning seminar, Green and Inclusive Schools, Inclusion and Diversity, Blended Learning and Environment. At first, we would like to congratulate all of you as you come from eTwinning schools that have been awarded the eTwinning School Label 2023-2024. Well done. Now, a few words about our agenda. Today, you will have the opportunity to attend a welcome speech by Dr. Michalis Paraskevas, the head of the Hellenic National Support Organization of eTwinning, two prominent keynotes by Dr. Iraklis Varlamis and Mrs. Irene Pateraki, who I'm sure both will inspire with their speeches. You will also participate in the networking activity where you will get to know your colleagues and hopefully have fun. Tomorrow, Friday, the 12th, is a day of workshops and project planning. Expert Greek ambassadors will guide you how to integrate eTwinning activities in your projects through artificial intelligence apps and virtual reality environments. Will help you explore how to collaborate and build synergies among teachers in your school and in the wider eTwinning community. We'll present you with implemented action plans with regard to inclusion, exploring social issues such as children's rights. We'll talk to you about green schools and equip you with tools and strategies to implement sustainable practices in your schools. Last but not least, there will be the project planning activity, which will continue on Saturday, the last day of the seminar, along with the project presentations. Hopefully, we would like you, if we can manage to register your projects and possibly implement it from September, because now we are at the end of the school year. So we hope you will enjoy the seminar and have fun. And wherever you want and need, we will be here for you. Now, without further ado, I would like to present to you Dr. Michalis Paraskevas, the head of the Greek National Support Organization of eTwinning. Dr. Paraskevas is Vice President of the Board of Directors of the Institute of Computer Technology and Publications, the OFADOS, and coordinator of the Greek School Network. He has 30 years of specialized professional development in the design, implementation, and operation of large-scale educational networks and e-government and e-learning services. He has published more than 80 papers in international journals and conferences, has authored 4 university books, and has participated in more than 50 committees of international journals and conferences. Mr. Paraskevas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mrs. Vasilopoulou, for your kind words. I am very happy to be today here with you. So, dear participants, I would also like to welcome you to the eTwinning seminar, Green and Inclusive Schools, and I'm sure you will find a joy what we have prepared for you. I would like to say a few things about eTwinning, as its benefits are countless. Amy Powler, an American comedian, producer, and actress, once said, "Find a group of people who challenge and inspire you, spend a lot of time with them, and it will change your life." I believe this quote could perfectly apply to you, eTwinners, who challenge and inspire each other and spend a lot of time together communicating and collaborating on your projects, building long-lasting partnerships and friendships, and share your common passion about eTwinning. eTwinning changes teachers' and students' lives. It's true. eTwinning is an EU initiative since 2005, which thousands of teachers all over Europe and beyond have embraced with great enthusiasm. It's undoubtedly the most exciting learning community in Europe. Working on a safe platform, teachers and students have the opportunity to communicate, collaborate, develop projects, connect, and share with like-minded people. It is well known in the eTwinning community that teachers, eTwinners, are offered plenty of free and continuing professional development opportunities of the highest quality, reap the benefits of well-organized seminars, workshops, MOOCs, get fresh ideas and inspiration by shared good practices, and constantly improve their teaching methodologies and develop as role models for their school colleagues. The benefits are numerous for students too. It goes without saying that young eTwinners not only communicate, collaborate, and learn to respect their European partners, but they also hone their 21 first key competencies, explore their own interests, learn how to think out of the box, become more confident and creative. They also become digital literate, learn how to respond to the challenges emerging, and as critical thinkers, find solutions to them. So, eTwinning plays a key role in fostering and developing students' creative and innovative capacities for further learning, as it offers teachers many opportunities to apply innovative and creative learning in their teaching practices. Both the teachers and the participating students benefit from cooperation they have with schools in other countries. They get out of the narrow confines of the classroom, and the class develops in a European dimension. The five main areas of added value in the everyday teaching and learning practices through eTwinning projects are: first, authenticated learning. Students are more motivated when they participate in enthusiastic and in authentic and meaningful learning activities. Second, collaborative learning. eTwinning projects require collaboration at many levels between teachers, students and teachers, and the class and the community. Third, then there is a European dimension. An eTwinning project can, by its very natural, address the European dimension, implicitly by bringing pupils and teachers in a mutual contact, and explicitly by choosing topics that are important for the broadening of mutual understanding. European projects foster tolerance and understanding, and ways can be found to present the European Union in a positive light, with consequences that it should lead to a better life for all member states and their people. Additionally, there is collaborative use of the information and communication technologies in education. So eTwinning promotes the use of the new technologies in schools, facilitating students and teachers to develop their technological skills in authentic situations. Teacher training and professional development, an important part of eTwinning in general, and projects in particular, is its contribution to the learning and professional development of the teacher involved. And finally, there is the aspect of professional development of teachers. An important advantage of any eTwinning project can be the implicit professional development of the teachers involved by sharing knowledge with others and cooperating, discussing and working towards set goals. Teachers are indeed stimulated. More importantly, there is the aspect of the culture of professional development it promotes with online training and professional development programs. In addition to the collaboration of teachers in projects, eTwinning offers online training programs at the European as well as national level. In this way, teachers are given the opportunity to be trained in issues related to developments in the field of pedagogy and the use of ICT. The eTwinning groups are European online communities which have been created to enhance learning through a social networking environment. These communities offer material for study, examples of good practice from teachers applying innovative teaching methods, supervisory material for study and use by all participating teachers. The teachers themselves post their own material and prepare presentations with what they apply in the classroom and think would be of interest to other teachers. So, eTwinners have a home to discuss and to work together in a specific theme by sharing examples of their practices, discussing teaching and learning methodologies, and finding support for their common interests. They develop not only professional skills, but solidarity and resilience too. Now, some words about eTwinning in Greece. The Greek National Support Organizations organizes online courses and webinars, seminars, national conference, and MOOCs to provide professional development opportunities for teachers. Additionally, the Greek NSO has organized eTwinning STEM's actions for a variety of schools to provide resources and support for collaborative STEM projects. While eTwinning Innovation Awards recognize schools that have demonstrated excellence in their eTwinning projects. The Greek NSO collaborates with the Greek National Agency of Erasmus Plus and offers special events. eTwinning involves, supports, and recognizes the entire school community. Its benefits affect its institution, teachers, parents, and stakeholders. The values of eTwinning need to be embedded in the school's policies and professional development with the support of school management. We need an innovative model for educational institutions, and here come eTwinning schools. Now, some words about eTwinning schools. The Greek eTwinning community embraced the model of eTwinning schools, and since its launching in 2017, a rising number of schools have been awarded the label of eTwinning school. Are eTwinning schools the ideal schools? We believe they are. They embody the 5 attributes of an ideal school: commitment to leadership, strong commitment to collaboration, sharing, and teamwork. They are agents of change. They are models of other schools, and they are inclusive and innovative learning organizations. According to the eTwinning school mission, becoming an eTwinning school is a development journey which promotes a shared leadership culture, providing concrete opportunities for professional support, such as coaching or peer learning, and encouraging teachers to contribute and design curriculum. At the same time, while each eTwinning school is different, facing diverse challenges and realities, it gives an active role to students. eTwinning schools develop and share a vision focused on the learning of all students, while differentiated methodologies are adopted. They establish a culture of inquiry, innovation, and exploration. They focus on inclusion, where all students are accepted and there are no barriers to learning. There is respect to multiculturalism and in interculturality. Their learning environments include hands-on and non-formal practices like blended learning and are enriched by ICT tools. The teacher in the school work together as a team to plan their eTwinning and other pedagogical activities. They share their experiences and practices with their colleagues, both inside and outside their school. They collaborate on providing an eTwinning action plan and use it to drive innovation and change in their school and beyond. Additionally, students have a role to play in the development of the eTwinning school. They promote eTwinning to teachers, both already engaged or who are not yet involved, and parents acting both as drivers and as a sounding board for all innovations taking place in pedagogy and use of technology. eTwinning schools are models for other schools. The eTwinning school is committed to playing a role of ambassadors for other schools in their area by actively promoting eTwinning and disseminating their achievements through as many means as possible: open days, information briefings, and mentoring schemes. They offer professional development opportunities to other schools in their area. eTwinning schools are inclusive and innovative learning organizations. eTwinning schools are committed to inclusivity at every level and actively seek ways to create an inclusive environment for students of every ability and culture, their parents, and the wider community. Teachers in eTwinning schools commit to developing the whole school as a learning organization. eTwinning in this means, eTwinning is the means to their curricula using innovative pedagogical models, which include, among a variety of approaches, collaborative learning, student-centered education, flexible approaches to learning times and learning spaces. eTwinning schools create a good image for the school, and it's a recommendation for the whole community. eTwinning stands for openness, for efficient learning, for empowerment, for an international sustainable focus. eTwinners develop a European dimension for citizenship, including empathy and tolerance. eTwinning schools provide the foundations for a longer and sustainable cooperation with other schools. They represent a European feeling at home, mentality, and way of learning and living. So, I hope you find this seminar very useful and enjoy this time with our team. So, all partners of the Greek National Support Organization of eTwinning, we are at your disposal for anything you need in this activity, in this seminar. Thank you very much for your participation in this seminar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paraskevas, for your welcome speech. It's true, people who are here, they know that we can talk about eTwinning for hours because eTwinning is a big family of like-minded people who share the same passion, and eTwinning schools are model schools. Now we would like to invite our first keynote speaker, Professor Iraklis Varlamis. But first, let me tell you a few things about about Professor. Professor Iraklis Varlamis is an associate professor in data management at Harokopiou University of Athens. He holds a PhD in informatics from Athens University of Economics and Business and a Master of Science in Information Systems Engineering from the University of Manchester, Institute of Science and Technology in the UK. He has been technical coordinator in a number of EU-funded projects concerning knowledge management, data mining, and machine learning. He has authored more than 200 articles on text and graph mining and intelligent applications in special networks and the web, and received more than 4,000 citations. Professor Varlamis will talk to us about generative language models and their use in education, and it's a great honor to have him here with us. Professor, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you for the introduction, Ms. Vasilopoulou. Thank you, everyone, for attending my presentation. I'll try to make it as simple as possible, and also try to adapt it to the interest of your of our audience. Let me know if you can see my screen now. Okay, I'll share the screen to be sure. Okay. Can you see my screen now in full screen?
Yes.
I hope yes. Okay, it's loading.
It's loading. Okay.
Yeah, I hope that it will be okay by now. Okay.
Okay.
So the title of my presentation is maybe a bit threatening in the beginning. So while it would be to talk about generative language models and how we can use this type of things in education, and maybe also my studies may also be a bit make you a bit worried about what the presentation would be. So I'll try to make it more simple. I will try to talk to you about how recent models, machine learning models, machine-based models work, models that generate text automatically by reading our input text. So I will try to give you a brief introduction how this works, and at the end of the day, I will introduce you on how tools such as ChatGPT, and it's not the only one, but it's the most popular one at this moment, can be used in the educational process. So maybe many of you have already used it personally for personal use, but also in educational use. But in some cases, it is interesting to know how it works and what we can do with such tools and what we cannot. So I will start the story with Turing machine, which was, let's say, the first machine that used to follow a specific logical process, in order to take a decision. What is interesting in this type of machine is that it allowed the user to encode, let's say, to program in a kind of way, a way to take decision, an algorithm as we call it. So the way to take decision, the algorithm, has been programmed, let's say, in this machine, and it was based on two things: on the input that the machine reads at every time, and on the memory that the machine has from previous views. So what is important in this Turing machine, it's that it does not, let's say, implement the basic operation of a computer software system or whatever that takes an input and gives an output, but it also has a memory. So it takes an input, it uses the memory, and then produces an output. So this is more or less the idea of this machine. So through the time, artificial intelligence evolved, and we moved to another kind of, let's say, interesting model, who are artificial neural networks. These neural networks were inspired by the biological neural networks, but at the end of the day, we could imagine them as closed, as black boxes that take an input and in some cases remember previous input or not, and they produce an output. So if we want to go into more details into this artificial network, we have to say that these strange, let's say, machines or these strange networks, in essence, were mathematical functions. Mathematical functions that take a number as an input and produce a number as an output. So this is the main idea of artificial neural networks. And all these bubbles here that you see are the neurons, I'll call the neurons, so are the basic functions. And all the arrows here are the input and the output of its function. So we have an artificial neural network when we have several functions that work together and take some numbers as input and generate a number as an output. The idea here is that the number that they generate in the output should somehow be what we would normally expect to be. So if we, for example, give numbers 3 and 5, then we expect the output to be 1. If the output is not 1, then we have to somehow improve the memory of this artificial neural network. So we have to correct these functions somehow. So this is the main idea of artificial neural network. So we need a lot of samples, a lot of inputs and output pairs that we use to train this neural network, to let this neural network to learn things. So this is the idea. So this memory, the network memory, is in essence some weights and some thresholds that all these functions have in order to decide whether they will be activated by given inputs, so whether they will output 1 or a different number at the output or not, or output a 0 or something. So this is the main idea. So as you see, it's a quite complex network, and as you can see in the next slide, they can be even more complex with dozens or even hundreds or thousands of neurons that in essence are simple mathematical functions. And what is even more interesting is that the last, let's say, 10 years or a bit less than 10 years, we have seen a tremendous rise on complex neural networks, not so simple as this one with the 3 layers, let's say, of neurons, but with more layers, with more neurons, and also with more ways of connecting the neurons. In some cases, we connect the neurons with the previous layers and not only with the next layers. We also have this kind of connections which take the output of a previous input and redirects it as an input to the next step. So we have outputs that are redirected as next input. So we have the idea of sequence of inputs and not separate, let's say, individual inputs. This is even more interesting because our recurrent, as we call them, neural networks, have the ability to see numbers one after the other, and these numbers that arrive one after the other will generate a specific output. This is interesting, but at the end of the day, we're talking about numbers, and maybe you have already used ChatGPT and you know that you write words, and on the output of this tool, of this model, of this neural network, because this is a neural network behind ChatGPT, you get words again. So we need a few more details to see how words are converted into numbers. Okay, so this is a little bit more of history that tries to put the two things that I showed you before together in the same architecture. So it combines, let's say, the Turing machine with the mechanical parts that I saw in the first slide with the neural networks, which is in essence a mathematical, let's say, combination of mathematical functions that redirect their inputs, their outputs, to make them inputs to other mathematical functions. So the first problem, as I told you, was to convert text into numbers. So in this case, we use a term that is called embedding, which is actually a series of numbers or a vector of numbers, a set of numbers. It could be 3 numbers, as I show you here, but in essence, it could be 100 numbers or 300 numbers for each individual word. And the idea here is to have a way to learn for each word in any language, and this can be expanded to each sentence in any language or each character in any language. But let's stick into words. For each word written in any language, we want to map it to 100 numbers, 100 different numbers. Let's say that these numbers range from 0 to 1. Okay? The idea here is that these embeddings can be generated, can be learned, let's say, by another neural network. These neural networks that generates this number for all the words of a language can be trained using simply a large amount of text in this language. So we're living in an era where we have thousands or millions of texts, raw text, I mean, web pages, documents, scan, digital, let's say, documents from libraries and so on. So we have thousands and millions of texts that we can use to train those networks. And the idea is that we train those networks with this kind of sentences, for example, where we hide the word walking. And we say, if we give to the network some numbers that corresponds to each word, can the network learn to predict what will be the number set, the set of numbers for the word that is missing? And this is the idea of creating word embeddings. In this way, the neural network that creates the embeddings learns to convert every word to a set of numbers. So if we have every word to be a set of numbers, then a text can be an input to a neural network. And this is the main idea behind all these text-based, let's say, neural networks or text-related neural networks. We convert text to numbers and then we feed the network with numbers. If we want to feed the network with images, then we need a different way to convert the images to numbers. And this is something that is also done. So neural networks in the end of the day work with numbers. Another thing that is also very interesting here is when we want to, for example, predict the next word that goes in this sequence of words, how we can model this problem as a neural network, let's say, problem, or a problem that has been solved by a neural network. So the idea is that we take the first words, we take the vectors of numbers, the set of numbers that correspond to each one of them, and we feed it to a neural network. And then at the output of this network, we expect something like this one that corresponds to the word down, or that is as close as possible to the word down. And then we say that the next word should be the word down. This is the idea of predicting what will be the next, let's say, word. And this is the main idea of, let's say, considering the whole sequence of words in order to predict the next one. So this prediction is more, let's say, solid, or we are more confident about this prediction if we are able to see a long number of words, let's say, before the current word. So if we have a long, let's say, context of this word, then it's easy for us to predict the word. This is the idea of long short-term memory networks, which is a type of neural networks. What is even more interesting is that, as you see here in 2017, there are some works that take, let's say, neural networks and all this case of sequence of words a step ahead and say that when we examine a word and we want to predict, let's say, what this word would be if we hide it from the context, then it's not always the previous word or the word after that defines this word that is missing. But maybe there are other words in the broader context that define this word. For example, eat in this sentence is defined by the animal, or eat in this sentence is related to the street. And this is the idea of attention. So in any case, when I have a sequence of words, let's say a sentence, each word in this sentence is affected, let's say, or has an attention, gets an attention from other words, specific other words in this sentence. So the idea is that we will have the resources and to train a complex neural network, it would be possible to feed it with long text, with thousands or millions of text, and it can learn when it sees a word in the context of a sentence, what are the words that affect this specific word. So it would learn where to put its attention, what to take care of. If we take it to the case of images, for example, and we want, for example, to say what an image depicts, then a human eye would focus on a specific part of the image and say that in that part of the image there is an object, and this is the object that is depicted there. The same goes here. If we examine each word in the sentence, we focus on it and we say that it, in this case, corresponds to the animal. It, in that case, corresponds to the street. And that's it. So the neural network can learn where to put attention. In order to achieve this, we need a very complex neural network with million of neurons, with million of and billion of connections. As you see here, the ChatGPT, or the GPT, actually the GPT-3, which is the predecessor of ChatGPT, uses 175 billion parameters, which is 175 edges in this network. And it has a lot of layers, as you see here, several layers. And in some cases, it can go up to 340 million parameters. So what is the idea here is that if we have the resources, the computational resources to train this thing, then, and of course, 300 billion words to give as an input, then this GPT model will, in essence, learn the structure of a language, who has been used to write this text, or the structure of all languages of the world if we give them multilingual content. So we have a race running here, as you see here, from June 18 until now, with many big companies trying to build bigger and bigger language models. These are called large language models, and they have all these billions of neurons and parameters and connections and parameters to be trained. The interesting thing now starts now, because we're talking about models that can get as an input, can get a sentence as an input, and can give another sentence as an output. They can produce one word after the other, the output sentence. So the idea is that we want to see if these type of models can pass the Turing test. The Turing test examines whether a machine can be responding, let's say, as good as possible, that can conceive, let's say, a human, can make a human believe that it is not a machine, but is a human that is responding to it. So this is one of the tests that have been made in 2021. Some engineers tried to run this Turing test on a benchmark of articles taken from newspapers and text articles generated by language models. And these articles have been presented to human judges, and also have been presented to other machine learning models, neural networks, let's say, that are also trained to detect between genuine text or human written text and machine written text. The idea, the results here are really interesting. If you see here in the human test, the machine or the human test here, you can see that using different text generation models, let's say, or large language model, the idea is that in average, the performance of the human test or the machine test was similar to random. So it was almost impossible for a human or a machine to detect whether the text has been written by a human or a machine. And here we have some machine detectors also, which in some cases behave a bit better, or perform a bit better. And also we have some numbers here that shows that with GPT-3, which is, let's say, the predecessor of ChatGPT, once again, the task for humans to detect the original text or the human written text from the machine written text is very difficult. It's almost close to random. In some other models, the predecessors of GPT-3, the cases are easier. So this gave a rise to chatbots. Of course, chatbots have been around for many more years, but the idea of chatbots initially was to read the text, to read the user text, a user question, try to understand what was the intent of the user, and then so what the user was looking for, and then using some specific template, they tried to form an answer. So to take some facts and put the facts in the template and set up an answer. With the large language models, the idea of chatbots completely changed. So the idea is that the input is a sequence of words, and then the output is another sequence of words. And this, in the end, performs well. So we go to this chat generative pre-trained transformer, as it is called. So it is based on chat, it is based on user input in order to generate output. And this is a task that is supervised, which means that we have trained the model before that with the documents that with question answering, let's say, text documents, and also has some implement some ideas of reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning means that once the answer that is given by the system, by the chatbot, is not correct, then you have a button, to a thumbs up or a thumbs down button to give a reward, either positive or negative, to the model. And then the model adjusts the functions, readjusts the neural network in order to improve the results in the future. So it continues to learn more things as you give your input to ChatGPT. And this is something that is also interesting. So let's move to ChatGPT now, and let's discuss the options that we have. So the task that it can do is that it is not only a chatbot, but it can write code, it can compose music, it can write scripts, it can write fairy tales or even books or novels, more specifically. It can write reports, it can answer questions, it can write poems, lyrics, and so on. It also has some restrictions. So it works better in English than in less represented languages such as Greek or Slavic languages, where we don't have so many documents to train it, or it has not been trained with so many documents for that languages. It also has some limitation on the size of the text it can produce. Maybe at some point you will see the response to stop, to be interrupted in the middle. And what is even more interesting, and you have to consider, is that it does not always produces true information. Since it simply puts words one next to the other, maybe in some cases it is not well trained to produce real results. So here you can see the example is not so good, but here you can see a response in Greek that is was suddenly interrupted. Of course, this is the free version of the software, so maybe if someone has access to the paid version, maybe you can also get the full answer in Greek or in any other language. But usually in English, the response is always complete, and then you can use, for example, a translation service and get the response in the language that you want. Here you can see that it can write poems, so you can give 2 verses here, or you can ask about writing 2 verses about something, and then you can ask ChatGPT to give you the melody, let's say, behind these 2 verses. So it gives you a melody using an ABC notation. So everything that it outputs is text. And in order to be able to produce this text, so for example, this notation, it means that it has been trained with documents using this notation. So this is something that you have to consider. What is even more interesting is that you can use it with various, let's say, ways, given your imagination. For example, here is I try to write some question to play a role-playing game. So instead of asking ChatGPT to give me an answer, I ask ChatGPT to give me an answer by taking a specific role. As you see here, I want ChatGPT to act like someone, like Ulysses from the World of Troy. So the way that it responds, it's not using, let's say, modern English, but using ancient English, or it would be even better if it could answer in ancient Greek, but this is not the case. So as you see, the story is good here. So the response is with a different style. So you can ask we can ask it to respond as an ancient Greek, or as a small kid, or as an adult, or as a scientist. So you can ask him to act like a different user every time, and this changes the responses. It can create useful summaries, so you can learn about things by asking him to give you a short summary about something. What is interesting here is that it has been trained using, for example, text that describes ChatGPT, so it can give you an answer about ChatGPT. But if you ask the ChatGPT to give you a short summary of yourself, for example, it can also give you a short summary of someone that has your name, but the text would be completely, let's say, random. It would make sense, but it will describe someone that is not you, most probably. But of course, here you can see that if you ask a tool to give you a Greek history summary, it can give you the main events, and the main events are correct because the text that it has been trained on are actually also include historical books. As I told you before, you can tell it to adapt the answer to different audiences. So here I ask for a simplified explanation on how quantum physics works, and then I ask it to rephrase it to make it more readable for 15-year-old students or even for 6-year-old students. So it will try to simplify the text. Of course, the explanation will be more or less the same, since at the end it just outputs words that relate to quantum physics and tries to make them reasonable, but the answer, as you can see in the same question, can be different. Of course, many educators have tried to test ChatGPT if it is able to answer, for example, multiple choice question. And as you can see here, in some cases it succeeds, but in other cases it can fail. So this is something that we have to consider. It just outputs an answer that is the most probable. So asking to fill the gaps as we have here, maybe it's easy, but it's not always 100% sure that you'll get the right answer. What is even more, let's say, risky, and you have to be careful, is when you ask ChatGPT to give you resources. So when you ask ChatGPT to give you papers that talk about something, or online resources, websites or web pages that talk about something. Web pages, maybe it could give you something good, but for papers, scientific papers, or I don't know, European, EU-based, let's say, content, articles, maybe you will get this type of answers, which seem to be real, but in essence, they correspond to something that does not exist at all. So I checked the title of the paper using Google Scholar, and there is no such paper. So what you have to do is to be careful when you use it, but of course you can use your imagination to make it as creative as possible. On the other side, being an educator, maybe you have thought what I can do to prevent or to make sure that my students have not used ChatGPT to generate an answer, and they have created it by themselves. So there are some detectors. Even ChatGPT itself can be used, can be asked to give you, to tell you if a text is written by a machine or by a human, but you have to keep in mind that the response is not always correct. So if you check it today, maybe the answer that we will get is that it seems to be written by a human, or it seems to be written by a machine. So usually this type of model has a bias, tries to provide a positive answer, but let's say a kind and positive answer, but it is not always true in all cases. And if you insist, maybe you can also make it, let's say, change its mind and produce a different result, or try to fit to what you ask it for. Okay, in this last part of the presentation, I will try to give you some ideas. Maybe you already have more ideas than me on how you can creatively use this type of models in learning. So, for example, you can create material for a case study. So, if you don't have, let's say, books or texts that you want your students to read about and learn some things, and then try to write their own assignment on something, then you can provide them some reading material that is machine generated. The risk here is that maybe this material that is produced is not 100% correct in any case. However, for common things, for common subjects, you can use it, and the result is almost always correct. So if you are not asking about, I don't know, scientific things or state-of-the-art things, but more common things, then the responses would be okay. Then you can ask questions. So you can give your students this text to read, and then you can give these questions that are also machine generated to help them comprehend what they have already read. And of course, you can convert these questions to a different type of questions. For example, some inference questions, so you can convert them to multiple choice questions with multiple answers. So this is something that such types of tools can easily generate. And as you see here, which is even more interesting, you can ask the program to give you HTML code, for example, that takes these answers and creates an HTML page with all these questions and answers. So if you have a small knowledge of how to write code, then it would be a good start to ask ChatGPT to provide you the main code, and then you can modify it accordingly. You can also make your students part of the process. So instead of trying to seek where your students have used ChatGPT to generate the answers, you can ask your students to use ChatGPT to generate the answers, or to start thinking and get more ideas about something. So you can ask them to create a new card game, as you see here. So they can ask ChatGPT to get some ideas about card games, and then to keep asking questions to get more details about the game. So they can get a lot of ideas, they can get a lot of text and documentation about the concept, and then of course they have to be asked to filter down this information and prepare, let's say, their final presentation. Of course, they can use ChatGPT to create their presentation, as I will show you in the next slide, which is also something that is really interesting. You can ask your students to correct their text. So you can ask them to write some text and then put it on ChatGPT and ask the machine to write it, to make it more comprehensive, more, let's say, well-written, using the English language, let's say, in a better context and so on, and compare the results. So this will, let's say, improve the language level of your students also, if this is not so good, or if they are not so adult, or at an age that they don't have a good language level. You can ask them to create answers for something, so, or to give reasons. You can let them consider the tool to find reasons, to find arguments, and then put these arguments together in order to produce a final result. As you see here, we can ask, based on these arguments, to create a slide, and then you can ask your students to present these slides. Finally, as a conclusion, I would like to put, let's say, your attention to other generative models that you can use. So from the same company that launched ChatGPT, the company is called OpenAI. There is another model, another generative model that generates images. Maybe you have already be aware of this painting. You know this painting, the girl with the pearl earring, if I remember well the name. So you can give this image to the DALL-E software, and it can fill the area around the image to make it feel more natural. So you can get expanded, let's say, version of something that does not even exist. You had only the face of the girl, and then you get the whole room of the girl that is generated using large, let's say, image models. And this is another concept, another version of DALL-E, where you can give a text prompt. For example, you can ask for an astronaut on a horse, and you can get this image in a couple of seconds. This is a generated image, and you can get also more alternatives of this image to choose. There is also Writer, which is more, let's say, formulated, a more specific chatbot for creating documents, writing documents for specific cases. So you can write, for example, short notices, or you can write curriculum vitas, you can write response letters to something, excuse me letters, or whatever. You can ask it to formulate the text. You can just parameterize the question, and then giving some hints, the tool will create you a whole text, a letter, or whatever. This is a job description question for a specific position. This is another generative model that creates music. Imitates the way some bands are using in their plays. For example, here you have Beatles. The final results is not so good for at the moment, so maybe it's a fusion and confusion of different sounds, and maybe it's not so good into the human ear, but in any case, this is something that is under development by this company. Also, we have Codex that generates code, and this is also OpenAI. And as a conclusion, I would say that the language generation models have several advantages. They have a very good language proficiency that can be exploited in many ways from you and your students, but also have some limitations that have to be considered by you, by us actually, putting myself into the loop, and our students. ChatGPT is also an example of a content creation tool that uses, of course, all this technique, all this neural networks technique and natural language processing techniques that can be used in education. And this is something that you have to keep in mind, and you have to experiment with. And also, you have to keep in mind that the tools are not always perfect at the moment they have been launched, but of course they can be improved as time passes, as we use them, and as we provide feedback to them. They can become even better. And of course, we need also to talk about more research that is needed to the use of speech-encoded production tools and how this can be used in education. And this is something that is still let's say, in its beginning. And how also to stimulate the students' interest to these tools and not let them lose their interest about learning new things. That's all from my side. So if you have any questions, you can ask me at the moment, but of course you can also type these questions to ChatGPT and take some answers. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Varlamis. I believe that participants have questions, but they need to digest all the information that you have presented us with. So we will share your presentation with them later, and they will explore all the generative models that you presented. And as AI has invaded education, has gained lots of ground. So thank you very much for being here and for your instructive speech. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So now, dear all, we're going to have a small break till 16:15. So we'll follow our program, and we'll be back with our second keynote speaker. Okay? Welcome back. Now we would like to continue with our second keynote speaker, Mrs. Irene Pateraki. Ms. Pateraki is Pedagogical and Monitoring Manager for the European School Education Platform. She holds a master's degree in multicultural education from Goldsmiths College, University of London, and worked several years as a kindergarten teacher in Greece. She worked as a pedagogical expert in the Hellenic National Support Organization and contributed to the EduGate of the Ministry of Education. She oversaw the eTwinning Ambassadors Group and Creative Classroom Group for several years, has organized and facilitated online courses, webinars, conferences, and workshops for teachers from 45 countries. We are very glad she's here with us today. So, Ms. Pateraki, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Maria. It's a great honor to be with you and, be part of an event you organize there in Greece. So before I start, how many of you got the eTwinning school label this year? You're all new eTwinning schools. Can you write in the chat, please? Yes, I see some faces there. I know it took us a little bit more time than expected, but we are trying our best to manage to do all the things now with the new platform that we have. I know some technical difficulties, but I think slowly we are getting there. So third time there, second time in eTwinning schools. That's great. So here, great. I'm just checking. First time, welcome, Lucia. First time in eTwinning school. That's great news. First time from Maria. It's really nice to have newcomers. So we're going to talk a little bit about inclusive and green strategy in your eTwinning school. And I have to say that it was a bit, inclusion. Yes, we have it in the eTwinning school mission. Green, not really explicitly there. But I was trying to see what is available and what we have there so far. So going to my first slide, I would like to start with the policy context that we have. And in the European Commission communication on achieving the European education area by 2025, which is actually quite close, it's not even 2 years, you can see that number 2 is inclusion and gender equality. And number 3 is green and digital transitions. So this means that the European Commission gives a really important role to the inclusion and to the green elements. And when we are talking about inclusion and eTwinning schools, inclusive learning organizations is part of the eTwinning school mission. I hope you are all aware about this mission. And when we are talking there about inclusion, it means that as long as you actually filled in the application to become an eTwinning school, you are already aware that it is a school that creates and supports continuous learning opportunities for all staff, that the school promotes team learning and collaboration among all staff, that the school recognizes and supports pupils with special needs, pupils who might face learning, linguistic, social challenges through specific support and actions that are aimed to increase their learning success. And for that reason, also, the European Commission has created a toolkit for schools that at the moment you can still find it available in the School Education Gateway. It was created in 2016. It is aimed for school heads, teachers, policymakers, everyone who is working in a school. And you can find there a self-assessment tool, different webinars, recorded webinars on inclusive education and tackling early school leaving, video reports of good practices, and quite a few of resources. So actually, I would advise you can still go to the School Education Gateway and you can find the toolkit if you want to see some more resources, to take some more ideas on how to be more inclusive in your eTwinning school. Going now to the green element, and I have to say this is quite difficult because actually we don't have specific reference in the eTwinning school mission, and the eTwinning school mission is a kind of the Bible of the eTwinning schools. It's the elements that we are really concentrating, and I'm just going to give you a teaser that, we have the eTwinning schools conference coming actually in 2 weeks, 24 to 26 of May. If you are not invited by your national support organization, you can still attend the first day. And this conference is going to be about well-being and creativity. And actually, we are going to see how we can maybe introduce well-being as part of this eTwinning school mission. I know we have many projects on sustainable education, many projects on all these SDG goals of UNESCO. But if we want to talk about green schools, we need to focus on priorities like efficient use of resources, a healthy environment, an ecological curriculum, nutritious food, and sustainable community practices. And this means that the school has also a green action plan. And I know that as eTwinning schools, most probably you already have an action plan. So green can also be incorporated in what you have already you are already doing there. And I was looking like what kind of activities we have. Maybe you are aware of the European Green Deal. Actually, it's the European Green Deal, all the things that the Commission wants to succeed regarding a greener Europe. And after this Green Deal, in 2022, just like last year, there was a Council recommendation on learning for the green transitional and sustainable development that supports the embedding of sustainability in schools. There is a working group that promotes to move to a greener and more sustainable Europe, and also the development of sustainability competencies. I know that lately we have many different competencies, DG competencies and life competencies frameworks. There are researchers, and there is quite a lot of research at school related to sustainability. And the European Commission has the European Innovative Teaching Award. And in the link that you can find after in my presentation, you can see 50 projects on sustainability. And I think it's quite interesting also if you want to get ideas of organizing projects or activities at your school. And finally, I wanted to share with you this Learning Corner. This Learning Corner of the European Commission gives quite a lot of board games and online quizzes that you can actually use with your students, like this big Climate Hero is a quiz that students or even teachers can take to see like their what they know about sustainability, what they know about having a green school. So there are quite a lot of activities there. There is like board games that you can even print and work on them with your students. But I would like you now, before we proceed and see some more information on how we can have like a sustainable and green eTwinning school, I would like you to share an example of an inclusive or green activity that you have implemented or implement at the moment in your eTwinning school. So if you can use that, if you don't, I will just share also the link here. So you can also use the code if you go to menti.com and put the 27790935. And let's see what activities you have done on inclusion and on sustainability in your school. And it would be interesting to see if you have a bit of like more whole school approach, because this is actually the idea of an eTwinning school. So you want to have the QR code, okay? If it is easier, here is the code. So I give you two options, either the QR code or the number that I see that Maria has already posted in the chat. So going back to the link, I suppose you are still writing. I'm sure you have something to share related to that. Recycling. I give you the opportunity also to write a bigger text, so it's up to you, like to describe a bit more. things that you do in your school, including and encouraging students with fewer opportunities. And actually, this is one of the elements that the Erasmus projects are requesting nowadays, to involve students with fewer opportunities. Reuse some materials to make new things at school, garden in our school, recycling, project reduce, reuse, recycle. I see lots of recycling, planting trees, school garden, where special needs students in particular grow their own food, vegetables, food and herbs. That's very nice, very interesting. So recycle and gardens at schools, that's, I think, the case. What about inclusion? Any specific activities on inclusion? I will give you just one. Okay, here. So listen to the voice of nature. I suppose this is an eTwinning project and mystery nature that you write there. We have won a project Green School, and we are going to plant trees, take care of garden, a unit in our textbooks about environment, and we do 3R activities: reuse, recycle, reduce, smart garden for reducing our school's ecological footprint. That's very interesting as well. Collection of bottle caps and a big cleanup in September, recycling activities. So botanical garden, very nice. So I see you concentrate more on sustainability actions than inclusion, or inclusion is something that is part of your school culture, so you don't do something specific. Plants, flowers, garbage collection. Okay. That's very interesting also. Our children with autism and normal children in our kindergarten do inclusive eTwinning projects. And I see that Michaela is there. So I think this comes from participant Michaela, because we have the eTwinning book coming soon. So this reminds me something she said in our interview. So thank you very much for these ideas and for the things you are already implementing. And so going back, sorry, to my presentation here. Oops, I'm sorry. I'm just going to put it full screen and then done. Okay. So going back to the presentation, I would like to see a little bit how we can actually go to the direction of having like more inclusive, more innovative schools. So here it's a bit more difficult, but I will try to combine both of these. One of the most important things is the school policies, and they play a crucial role in promoting inclusivity and sustainability. And these policies can actually help the school to create a safe and welcoming environment for all students and staff, to foster a sense of community and belonging, and to reduce the school's environmental impact, to prepare students for the challenges of a changing world. So when developing such policies, it is important to involve all stakeholders, including students, staff, and community members. And I think that this is actually one of the strengths of the eTwinning schools, that students take an active part, not only by deciding on what activities they will do in a project, but deciding on general activities in the school. Schools should also regularly review and update their policies to ensure that they remain relevant and effective. So you start something, you see how it works, it doesn't work, and then you have to address all the different difficulties that may arise. You can try to see how you can make things better, how you can change things. And it's a process of trial and error. And I think that this is actually going also to the annual theme of eTwinning. This is all about innovation. So innovation is the act of trying to do something different, not to be afraid of change things, and try to see how you can work out things in a different way. Another important element is the curriculum activities. And I know that especially in secondary, upper secondary, it's more difficult to change things in the curriculum. There is a set curriculum and it's, we have to follow the curriculum. But also through the curriculum, it's important to do activities where students can learn about issues related to sustainability, to diversity, to inclusion in a meaningful way, because they need to develop skills that it's not only a textbook, but they need to develop skills that can help them become engaged citizens in the future. And some examples of activities can include project-based learning, and we have that in eTwinning a lot, and inquiry-based learning. But other activities that can support inclusivity and sustainability can be service learning projects where students engage in community activities like volunteering. And you already mentioned some examples before, like with cleaning the area. Somebody said in the Mentimeter before. Debates and discussion where the students have the opportunity to explore different perspectives and engage in meaningful dialogue. Field trips to local environmental or cultural sites, and student-led initiatives, which will help them to have a deeper understanding of the world. So one example that you already mentioned is the creation of a school garden, the recycling, where actually is an activity that it's good if it comes from the students and if students actually have the ownership and of their own learning. And another important element is the community engagement. And eTwinning schools are considered schools that they are open. They are open to the local community. And when they want to have like inclusion and sustainability and be a green school, it's important to partner with local businesses and community organizations in order to have joint initiatives to promote environmental and social responsibility. I know that maybe if you are in a big city it's difficult, but I still remember that when I was working in Aegean Island in Greece, we did quite a lot of activities involving the municipality. And I used to be a kindergarten teacher, and one of the things I will never forget is when we went with our bicycles for a parade in the central road of the island, and we had prepared posters, and we started like giving the posters to all the owners of the shops by the beach on how to be greener. And it's something that we really did with the help of the municipality that helped us with having like a music, having the place open for us. So it's really important also for the students, because in that way they understand that the school is part of the community and they work together. So this means, as I said, an example, organizing events and activities that raise awareness about sustainability issues, celebrate diversity and inclusivity, make use of local resources that can help you support your goals, and involve parents, community members in your efforts to create a shared sense of purpose and commitment. And it's very important to involve parents and to involve parents in helping you with doing your work. Because we saw in many cases that parents, when we are talking about parents' involvement, we are talking more like, oh, okay, I informed the parents that we are doing these activities, or we do a presentation of what we did in our returning project. But involving actively parents can really help to create a good connection between the home and the school. And this is something that will benefit most of all the students when they see the way that they work together. And I think that parents can really help. I mean, there are different professions, different expertise. I think they can really be involved and help a lot by engaging in activities you do at school. And of course, all this is a transformative process. So in general, like create a shared vision, engage stakeholders, assess current practices, implement the changes, and reinforce teamwork and community involvement in the process. And yes, it's all about teamwork. And change is necessary, and change is also part of the game and what actually is part of the innovation coming to the annual theme we have in 2023. And I was thinking like, okay, how can you find support as eTwinning schools? Being an eTwinning school, it means that you have extra support. Actually, there is an eTwinning schools group that you will be invited shortly. I'm talking about the newcomers, where we develop different kinds of activities, professional development. But at the same time, we have a lot of activities and many professional development activities in the European School Education Platform, like MOOCs, on-site courses, webinars. So I was just looking to see if there are relevant activities for the next weeks related to our topic. So as you can see, there is one on the 22nd of May about the parent-teacher partnerships for inclusive learning, which is it's a short online course. Then actually about students and as agents of change that actually takes place right now. So yes, you cannot watch it, but there are quite a lot. And of course, the European Online Conference that is only for eTwinning schools. And I think it's a great opportunity also in that way, because you have the opportunity to network, to meet other teachers coming from eTwinning schools and work together. So I insist here that if you have not been invited by your NSO, you can still watch the first day, which is, I think, quite interesting, and you can get quite a lot of interesting input there. But apart from the professional development, in eTwinning, we have the supportive partners. So the supportive partners are organizations that we work together. They help us in organizing different professional activities. They help in organizing different events and by offering quite a lot of material. So here you can see a list of people that they are quite connected on the topic of inclusion and sustainability. So we have the lie detectors, that is like more about digital literacy. European Federation for Intercultural Learning, that they are working a lot with the mobility of students, and you already talk about the inclusion with the Erasmus mobilities. We have the scientists, and there are lots of projects in scientists and lots of activities that you can have related to sustainability. The Anne Frank House, who organize lots of training regarding inclusion, as well as the House of European History and Europeana. And finally, the Foundation for Environmental Education, that they do a lot. It's like the eco schools. And I know that after our collaboration with this foundation, many eTwinning teachers have managed now to have their school as an eco school. And they organize projects on sustainability and on green education using lots of the material that is available there. And I think that's all from my side. I was trying to cover a little bit of everything and offer all the information that you can find interesting. So thank you very much. I was a bit faster. I hope it's not a problem, Maria.
No, thank you so much, Irene. I believe that everybody enjoyed your presentation. And I think that the majority of people know who you are and what you have done and how you have contributed, how much you have contributed in the eTwinning action. We will share the presentation in our Twin Space, so participants will go back and read again and get ideas from your examples. I don't know if there are any questions that they would like to ask. I believe that this topic was much more, was easier for them, okay, to get than AI, although AI is innovation and we will need innovation. We need innovation. We have innovation. eTwinning schools are innovative. Any questions that you would like to make? Anything that you would like to ask Irene? Anybody?
Now they are okay.
We are okay. So I believe that at this moment we would like to thank all our guest speakers and everybody who watched the presentations in the event from YouTube live streaming. Live streaming will stop now, and we will move with networking. So thank you all. Wait for 2-3 more minutes and we'll start, I guess.